The Prime Minister has said Canada can be a global energy superpower for both clean and conventional energy. Tantalus is a Canadian technology company that offers a grid modernization platform for utilities and says, yep, we need to do this. We need to get it done to avoid outages we've seen like in Spain and Portugal. Peter Londa is the CEO at Tantalus, and he joins me now in studio to talk some more about this. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Very simply, how badly do we need an upgrade in Canada?
Well, it's not only in Canada, I would say across North America, but it's an amazing statistic. We all rely on power every day. If you think about it, when you get home, most people don't think about electricity until they go home, and if they try to turn the lights on and it doesn't work, really inconvenient. Within the utility industry, we have generation, transmission, and distribution. The vast majority of investment has historically been on generation and transmission. In Canada, about 80% of power that's generated is actually non-emitting from a carbon perspective, thanks to the hydro plants, nuclear capabilities in particular, and then some renewables. At the distribution grid, where we all live and work, where we need power delivered, and as we change our patterns of behavior, one of the most critical assets is transformers. The average age of transformers in Canada, 35 years. It's either at or beyond expected life of those transformers. So as we see Mother Nature do some wacky things with weather, as we see individuals purchase and rely on electric vehicles, as we see the rise of data centers in communities to support an advancement of computing capabilities, right? Demand is increasing, demand for power is increasing, supply is kind of constant. And so without a collaborative alignment between generation, particularly with Prime Minister Carney's initiative to get Canada as a leader to net zero, coupled with control and visibility at the distribution grid, yeah, it's not unrealistic that we see pretty substantial power outages.
We saw recently what happened in Portugal and Spain. Can you see that happening here, and if so, why? What are the similarities that line up here?
So yes and no. So it's a function of let me take a step back. In Spain and Portugal, there's still an awful lot of analysis that's unfolding. But what's unfolded is massive investment in renewable power. A lot of good reason for that, and a lot of good attributes associated with solar and wind and other non-emitting technology. The challenge with that is, in the context of how our grid is designed, we need inertia, we need kinetic energy, we need machines spinning, so that what's called frequency is stable. In Spain and Portugal, as renewable power fell off the grid, as devices started to fail, there are things called protective relays that trigger. Protective relays are designed to protect assets.
Okay.
When frequency goes above or beyond certain thresholds. And so those protective relays are second type instruments. And so as frequency changes because renewable power falls off the grid, it's either on or off, the sun's either shining or not, or there's a problem with the renewable source itself, those protective relays kick in. And it's very hard for a command center or an operator to control once that happens. And so you have a rolling blackout that cascades. Canada's sheltered from that, I'd say, to a certain extent. Places like Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, in particular, are making heavy investment in biomass. We see the rise of renewables, solar and wind across the country, but there's still a heavy presence of hydro, right? Turbines that are spinning. We see nuclear power plants, small modular reactors that OPG, Ontario Power Generation, is really a leader in globally. And so because of that, there is inertia. There is kinetic energy, so that if something falls off the grid unexpectedly, it can absorb that change in frequency. With that said, as Canada seeks to achieve net zero within the utility industry by 2035 and net zero as a country 2050, very ambitious objectives, and as we see the rise of renewables, at a provincial level, we could see that type of event. In the absence of having interprovincial transmission and connectivity, most of the grid in Canada goes north-south. It doesn't go east-west. And so that's an area of investment that has to happen. And then for us, Tantalus, where we're focused on utilities, is giving them the control at the distribution grid. So in the event something happens on the generation side or transmission side, immediately control non-critical load. Take stuff off the grid, take consumers, hot water heating as an example, eliminate it to mitigate the risk of a rolling blackout like we saw in Spain and Portugal.
Because we're not as susceptible as to what happened, I guess, countrywide for Spain and Portugal, what would be the first thing you would roll out here to get started?
Yeah.
You know, if the Prime Minister said, okay, where do we begin? Where do you begin? Yeah,
so from our perspective at Tantalus, we're pretty opinionated on that. We've seen massive investment in generation. We've seen a number of utilities here in Canada upgrade metering infrastructure. Hydro One in 2003 is one of the first utilities in North America to do that. Our view is protect the assets that are most critical to the distribution grid today. That's what mitigates, in our opinion, the risk of outage at the community level, at each block, at the city level, and at the provincial level. In conjunction with that, it gets sensors into the distribution grid that are tracking power quality, that are tracking things called harmonics and waveform capture, so we have a better understanding of what's actually happening with the flow of electricity. From there, we can start to then make, in my opinion, strategic decisions on increasing capacity, on the integration of renewable resources. Those renewable resources may be distributed inside a community, solar as an example, rooftop residential or community solar, storage as an example, but understand the ramifications that's going to have and protect the assets so that they're actually ready to have that type of renewable source of power integrated.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned the sensors, because so it's not even a problem sometimes of upgrading the system. It's just knowing what's there and what's working at the time. Okay, we do have to leave it there, Peter, but I appreciate your time. Peter Londa is the CEO at Tantalus. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks so much.